Okay, let's set the record straight. Um, Pal World developers use this article in court. Okay, I got an article for you to use in court. If Nintendo try to come at you and try to act like they own the Monster Taming World genre, well, I got an article for you to use in court. And to you YouTubers that try to say that Pal World developers stole from Nintendo, you need to do your research. Okay? You need to do your research before you open your mouth. I'm talking to every YouTuber that tried to defend Nintendo in this Pal World situation. You need to do your research before you open your mouth. So Pal World developers, if Nintendo comes at you, use this article in court. Listen to this. Listen to this. See, do your research before you open your mouth. Listen to this. Five great creature collecting games that are older than Pokemon. So Nintendo tried to give people the impression that they own the creature collecting games. They don't own nothing. Okay? And for you YouTubers that try to defend Nintendo and try to act like Pokemon was like the only creature collecting game, you people need to grow up. Okay? Listen to this. Five great creature collecting games that are older than Pokemon. It says here the best creature collecting games on the market are actually older than Pokemon, which is perhaps the most iconic of them all. Says here, Pokemon has been around a long Pokemon has been a long-standing source of inspiration for other monster taming games such as Dragon Quest Monsters and Robotrek. Dragon Quest Monsters, released just days before Pokemon Red and Blue, introduced features like breathing and stealing monsters. Monster Rancher, released a year before Pokemon, had a unique feature where players could obtain monsters by inserting CD-ROMs, something no other monster taming game has attempted. Pokemon is not the first creature collecting game. Nintendo like to give you the impression like they were the first. They're not. And the Pal World developers need to use this article in court. Listen to this. Says here, it's hard to believe sometimes, but Pokemon has been around for over 25 years, spawning spin-offs, video games, toys, animes, and live-action films, and inspiration countless others to try. Their hands at the monster taming genre, from Ni no Kuni to Monster Hunter. Pokemon has been a constant source of inspiration to other games looking to get on board the monster taming train. But here's where everything changes now. Says here, but for as long as Pokemon has been around, keep my music going here, like my instrumental. Says here, but as far as long as Pokemon has been around, it is important to remember that a few games beat Pikachu and the crew to the finish line. Some of these games even ran neck and neck, coming out months or even weeks before Pokemon Red and Blue. And then it says here, one thing that's always been true about the monster taming genre is that there is enough room at the end of the table for everyone. Okay? Nintendo don't own nothing. Okay? Says here, Pokemon, then it says, note, Pokemon Red and Green launched on February 27, 1996 in Japan. Meanwhile, the North American version debuted on September 28, 1998. Says here, while the former will generally use as a benchmark, games will be considered if their North American release happened before Red and Blue Western launch. Then it says Robotrek, 1994. This platform, SNES, developer Quintet, Engineer JRPG, says, set on a distant planet known as Quintet, Robotech begins in the middle of a civil unrest and put players into the role of the young son of an inventor, featuring a delightful, quirky story and a remarkable customization system. Robotrek allowed the players to find and build up to 3 robots at a time. Released for the Super Nintendo in 1994, Robotrek feels like a distant ancestor to something like Armored Core or Mech Warrior. It was developed by Enix, utilizing a rich and fun variation of the ATB battle system found in the chief rival Square Final Fantasy games. Anyway, number 4, Dragon Quest V, Hands of the Heavenly Bride, September 1992. Says here, Dragon Quest V platform, Super Nintendo, Android, iOS, Nintendo DS, PS2. Says nearly a decade before Enix would merge with Square in 2003, the company released the 5th Dragon Quest games and introduced monster taming into the franchise for the first time. Though the series has been around for 6 years, by this point, Enix was doing their best to change up the formula fairly early in its existence. Says here, in Dragon Quest V, Hands of the Heavenly Bride, players can recruit certain monsters to join their party after defeating them in battle. Though the list of monsters isn't as large as the latter, Dragon Quest games would allow, or even Pokemon games for that matter, it's still a hefty roster of 42 possible recruits. Classic Dragon Quest monsters classic Dragon Quest monster like slimes, metal slimes, and golem fills out the modest yet charming roster. Pokemon was never the first game, monster taming game. Nintendo liked to give you the impression that they were the first, but they never was. Anyway, number 3, Persona. This come out December 1996. Revelation Persona. Platform PS1, PC, PSP. Developer Atlas. Engineer JRPG. Yeah. Says here. A spin-off the long-running Shin Megami Tensei series, Persona began its life in earnest on the original PlayStation back in 1996. Though it lacks the social link system that was first introduced in Persona 3 in 2006, the first Persona game maintained the high school cast of characters and the stylish charm that the series became known for, featuring a gorgeous sprite work, fabulous character portrait, and a roster of classic SMTs, demons to battle and fuse together. Revelation Persona is still one of the monster taming game's best efforts. The first-person dungeon are also great fun to explore, offering plentiful challenges for players to test their collecting demons. Number 2, Monster Rancher, the first Monster Rancher, and this came out in 1997. Platform PS1, developer Tecmo, Engineer Life Simulation. Nintendo was never the first. They love to give you the impression that they were the first, but they're not. Okay. Anyway, says here, release a full year before Pokemon Red. Released a full year before Pokemon Red and Blue. Monster Hunter, Monster Rancher did a bit more than just beat its competitors to the market. While it is possible to collect and train monsters from within the game itself, including favorites like Gallop, Suzo, and Teddy, Monster Rancher most unique feature is its use of CD-ROMs. By inserting certain discs, the players can obtain unique and rare monsters. These CD range from Prince to Blink-182, from Michael Jackson to Green Day. Due to lack of disk drives in the most modern hardware, The recent remaster of Monster Rancher and 1 and 2 for the Switch and Steam features a digital database as opposed to disc. Even so, it's one of the Monster Rancher's most fascinating aspects that no other monster taming game has even come close to attempting. And then number one, here's number one. Digital Devil Story, Megami Tensei. Digital Devil Story, Megami Tensei. Shin Megami Tensei just celebrate its 35th anniversary. I'm messing up here. And then, let's see here. It's on the Nintendo Entertainment System, SNES, mobile, developer Atlas, JRPG, dungeon crawlers. Says here, Shigami Tensei has just celebrated its 35th anniversary, having first released on Famicom in Japan as a digital Devil Story. Oh my God. These games and their names. Says here, Megami Tensei on September 11, 1987, launched a full decade before Game Freak landmark RPG SMT has often described as what if Pokemon was made for adults. Although this initial entry has never made its way to the West, it spawned an entire life of spin-offs, a side story including Persona, Tokyo Mirage Session, and what's another one here? It says, since those humble beginnings, Shigami Tensei has become one of the premier RPGs brands and is beloved for its brand of dark, complex exploration of humanity days. Adds to this absolutely stellar list of demons and monsters to recruit, from Frost to Pixie, as well as the immense challenge that it often puts on players. It's one of the industry's most fascinating franchise, still going strong to this day. And let's see here. Anything else? That is it. So, Nintendo is not the first, okay? They were never the first, okay? They were never the first to the market with this monster taming game. They like to give you the impression that they were the first, but they never were, okay? I mean, Monster Rancher even beat them to the finish. Like the article says, Monster Rancher already beat them to the finish line. So for them to go around try to act like they were the first now, stop it, okay? Because Pokemon Stadium came out on the first Pokemon game I played was Pokemon Stadium on the Nintendo 64. Okay? Yeah. Pokemon was never on the Super Nintendo. They were on the 64. So there were games that came out before Pokemon did. Nintendo liked to give you the impression like they were the first. They were never the first. So if they want to try to take the Pal World developers to court, then the Pal World developers can use this article against them. Yeah. And for you YouTubers that be trying to act like Nintendo was the first, take a look at this article. Okay? Nintendo was never the first. They like to give you the impression that they were the first of something, but they're not. Everything that they do in a Nintendo does in a video game was done in other games before Nintendo started using it. Everything that Nintendo does in a video game was done in other games. Okay? Yeah, it would be like let me use Samsung. Let me use Apple for a minute. Apple likes to give the impression like they were the first company with the first big phones, right? They weren't. Samsung was the first company to do it. Okay? People say Nintendo. I heard somebody told me this, like, oh, Nintendo is the Apple of video games. Yeah. They like to steal people's ideas and try to act like they were the first one to it. Yeah. Okay? Nintendo was never the first. Okay. There were games before Pokemon even hit the scene. Oh, you didn't start playing Pokemon until like the Nintendo 64. Yeah. There was no Pokemons on the Super Nintendo. So there's plenty of games out there where you get to train and tame monsters. Nintendo is not the first. They like to they like to give you the impression that they were the first, but they're not. Yeah. Even when they patent this even when they patent the like I think it was Tears of the Kingdom, when they patent, I think they patent some ideas for video games or whatever. If you look at all the video games that were made before Tears of the Kingdom, Nintendo liked to give you the idea like they were the ones that came up with it, but there were games that were doing that before Tears of the Kingdom came out. Just saying. So yeah, Pokemon is not the first, man. So for those YouTubers that were getting excited about Nintendo, Pal World is like Pokemon, they are not the first, man. And like the article says, there's plenty of room. There's plenty of room for there's plenty of room for, where is it at? Where's the article? Where's the paragraph here? It says here, see if I can find it. It says here, but for as long as Pokemon has been around, it's important to remember that a few games beat Pikachu and the crew to the finish line. Okay? Some of these games even ran neck and neck, coming out months or even weeks before Pokemon Red and Blue. One thing that's always been true about Monster Taming Jr. is that there is enough room at the table for everyone. Yeah. So, when it comes to this this video game stuff, man, before people start jumping the gun and making accusations, they need to do their research first. Nintendo was never the first. Okay? Yeah. Just saying, man. And for those Apple users out there trying to act like the iPhone was the first biggest phone, no, it wasn't. It was a Samsung Mega. Okay? Yeah. So anyway, man, other than that, man, that's it I got to say on this whole situation. So if the developers of the Pal World want to use something in court, they got this article to use. Okay? Anyway, I'm going to leave this video for y'all to enjoy. Nice talking to you people again. Chris, still Star Wars and Star Trek thing. Dark Side. Cool.